This Reddit post that we're about to look at has gotten a decent amount of attention over the last couple of days. And once you read it, I think it'll be pretty obvious why. AI has been a pretty hot topic for debate. And usually sentiment is either one of two extremes. Either you're a vibe coder extraordinaire and you absolutely love coding with AI, or you're a Reddit bro who's on the exact other side of the spectrum and still believes AI can hardly do a hello world personal project. And as we know, when it comes to the internet, two extremes clashing makes for perfect entertainment. It finally happened. Rejected for not using AI first. So I just got rejected from a software dev job and the email was interesting. Yesterday, I had an interview with the CEO of a startup that sounded cool. Their tech stack was mainly Ruby and migrating to Elixir, and I had 3 interviews. One with HR, another was a code bite test, and then a technical discussion with the team. The final round was with the CEO who asked about my approach to coding and how I incorporate AI into my development process. I said something like, you can't vibe code your way to production. LLMs are too verbose and their code is either insecure or tries to write basic functions from scratch instead of using built-in tools. Even when I used agentic AI in a small hobby project, it struggled to add a simple feature. I use AI as a smarter autocomplete, not a crutch. And before we even see the CEO's response, a lot of you might be nodding your head saying, yeah, this is a well-rounded, middle-of-the-ground opinion. I do agree with the conclusion that you shouldn't use AI as a crutch, and a lot of the times you do have to fact-check it. But I think the way he gets that answer is pretty telling on his stance on AI as a whole. Like, starting off by saying you can't vibe code your way to production is also like a weirdly standoffish thing to say. There are a lot of things that you can't vibe code to production. He's right, but there are also some things that you sort of can. And making a blanket statement already comes off as you're very clearly on the side of like, yeah, AI is not going to replace developers or not going to be that useful. And the next line about how LLMs are too verbose and usually they try to write basic functions from scratch instead of built-in tools. I don't know if you guys have seen the evolution of where coding tools were like 2.5 years ago compared to now, but that sounds like something I would have probably said like 2 years ago when I first tested LLMs out for coding. I think there are a ton of issues when it comes to AI and coding in this current moment. And I think LLMs being too verbose, but also quote insecure or trying to write basic functions from scratch instead of using built-in tools is not one of them. And if I heard a candidate say something like this to me, my standpoint wouldn't be, oh, this guy's not AI first. My standpoint would more just be, okay, this guy's not fully up to date when it comes to using AI to code. Fast forward to 5 minutes after the interview, I get an email with this line. Thank you for your time. We decided to move forward with somebody who prioritizes AI first workflows to maximize productivity and shape the future of tech. First of all, what the fuck is this email? This sounds like the opposite of a scrappy tech CEO that's going to revolutionize AI. It sounds like a product manager who only knows jargon related to AI and who tried to write the most HR appropriate email humanly possible. Except there's a reason that big companies never give actual feedback on why you got rejected. Because when you actually do and it comes out sounding like this, it literally puts a target on your back. Like, who the fuck says prioritizes AI first workflow to maximize productivity and shape the future of tech in like a real world scenario? But yeah, I guarantee you if the feedback was a lot more ambiguous as to why the candidate got rejected, this post wouldn't even exist in the first place. And even if you look at a lot of the comments on this post, people are asking to name and shame this company. And this is exactly why companies do not give feedback on why they rejected a candidate. Because a lot of the times the reasons are unfair or pretty fucking dumb in the first place. Because at the end of the day, humans are extremely biased and flawed no matter how objective they think their hiring processes are. And if you knew the actual reasons you got rejected, a lot of the times you'd be like, what the fuck? Here's the thing, I respect innovation. I'm not saying LLMs are completely useless, but I'm not going to let an AI write entire code feature for me. They're great for brainstorming or breaking tasks down. When you let them dictate the logic, it's a mess. And yes, their code is awfully widely over-engineered and insecure. Yes, this is an opinion that I can respect. Maybe not the last part about often widely over-engineered and insecure. I think a lot of that comes down to how you prompt, because there's a huge difference in somebody who says, make a Twitter clone and I'm trying to make X. Here's exactly how I want it to look and exactly how I think it should be architected. Please make this piece like this and this piece like that. I have seen novice engineers and experienced engineers both use AI and the results are vastly different for the exact same use case. So when he says they're great for brainstorming or breaking ideas down, but when you let them dictate the logic, it's a mess, I agree with that. The problem is that is not how he came off in the actual interview. Starting off by saying you can't vibe code your way to production is not the same statement. To be honest, I'm pissed off. I was laid off a few months ago and this was the first company to actually respond to my application, and I made it all the way to the final round and I was optimistic. I kept reviewing the meeting in my mind. Where did I fuck up? Did I come off as an elitist dick? But I didn't make fun of vibe coders and I wasn't completely dismissive of LLMs either. Anyways, wanted to vent here. Now the top comment to this was, cool, you dodged a bullet there. And I would agree. I think a CEO that takes that kind of stance and literally rejects a candidate for this probably probably is not a CEO or a company you want to work under, but also as someone who has been on both sides of the coin of being an engineer that's trying to get hired and hiring engineers in this new AI world, I can see what would have been really unappealing about this candidate to someone that really does believe AI is the future of coding. And also we have to take it with a bit of a grain of salt. This person is venting. This is their first interview in months. And I'm sure there are probably some small details that were left out or some things that they said that they might not have registered to be important enough to add in the post, but could have also had red flags. Someone said the only thing you did wrong was not telling him exactly what you wanted to hear. Interviewing is like working in sales. At the end of the day, it is the human on the other side of the table that you will be working with. And regardless of how weird or extreme their opinions might be, it does make sense that if you're not a right fit, they're not going to hire you. And as like everything else with the internet, we sort of have two different extremes. You're either on the Reddit side where all vibe coding is bad, or you're on the LinkedIn tech Twitter bro where you should be vibe coding 24/7. And like with most extremes, I think the right answer is to be probably closer to this side. I think engineers that were really good before AI will be amazing at making use of AI in a really safe and effective way. But if you're an engineer that just says make a Twitter clone or make this button red without understanding where or why it should happen, that's how you fall into a lot of the common pitfalls that most vibe coders fall into. Also, I think a lot of people simplify what LLMs can actually do. Like the ability that it is able to code at is far greater than the ability that it is able to architecture something well. And that's also why if you're a senior developer, you have an edge up because you can do the architecture at this level and let it do the actual coding at the high level without having to write things yourself. And normally the results will be pretty good. And again, at the end of the day, AI is just a tool. You have some people saying, imagine not using AI at all. And then other people saying the more they use AI, the more they feel like they're not learning new things and just rotting their brain. Like it doesn't have to be either of those things. You can use AI to learn new things. This kind of feels like what I imagine the shift from like low level programming from C and assembly to higher level programming like JavaScript must have felt like. A whole bunch of people that were like, you know, if I don't control memory allocation myself, I feel like I'm losing out on programming. But now languages like JavaScript are sort of the norm and people figured out how to balance the two together. At the end of the day, I think that CEO was kind of crazy for rejecting a candidate just for that reason and also for writing that LinkedIn speak email like he did. But I also do think the candidate's answers didn't really put his best foot forward either. And I think that's a controversial opinion on the internet where everything relies on you being on one extreme or the other. So let me know in the comments who you guys think is in the right. And if you want to discuss it more, we have a Discord community you can join in the description, and I'll see you guys in the next video.